Welcome to the Call to Defend podcast, where we, like the Lord, are speaking in whispers. I'm Caleb Elliott, and this is Josh Davis.
So I guess to recap from last time, we had Elijah coming up to Ahab, the brother father, who had his prophets, who with his prophets were supposed to come up and basically kind of like spiritually duke it out with Yahweh and Elijah. So you had the 450 of them plus the Asherah prophets. So you had Baal and Asherah represented, and then Yahweh is in the midst of a famine, so things are dry. There's no really food or anything, which is interesting considering that both gods are fertility gods, and they're the ones that Elijah's like, hey, see what happens, bring them over.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have their sacrifice, which doesn't go the way they want it to go. There's no fire, comes down, and then Elijah pretty much takes their water supply and just dumps it all over, and it's like, yeah, you're always going to consume it now. And then he does. Then he Transformers 3 Optimus Primed everyone.
Wow.
That was a prophet.
What a way to put it.
And then he sees this cloud the size of a hand coming, which then pours onto the mountain, and there's life and there's flourishment. We talked about, you actually made this cool connection that I didn't think about, like on Mount Garden you have like this mini Genesis 1 through 8 kind of thing, or 9, where they just kind of like speed run all those things.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah. But so it should end there positively. That should just be the end of the story, and that's the way the chapter ends. And yet we go to the next week. We have like this great moment where everyone's being tested, including the gods. And Elijah, you could say, passes the test because he's faithful in what God's going to do. And then we get the very next chapter, which also deals with the mountain, which, interesting enough, goes the opposite direction of the first one. Where before we had this confident prophet who's trusting the Lord for all of it, to now
runs away like a wuss.
Runs away and hides. But, we can just kind of get there. So, just to kind of see what happens. So Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. And then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, "So may the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as life of one of them by this tomorrow." Then he was afraid, and he arose and ran for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. So he just ditches his servant. Ditched.
I'm always more flabbergasted here by the villain grandstanding of Jezebel.
Yeah.
If you're going to send him a messenger, just send someone to go kill him.
Yeah.
But no, she basically does the equivalent of any last words.
It's a whole villain monologue.
Exactly.
I was like, you could have offed this person if you actually just
exactly.
Them. But no, she sends this messenger, but it starts with the fact that, as it qualifies, Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. Like, it gives that very specific thing. Like,
yeah,
maybe this wasn't the move to make, because now you have this Jezebel coming after you to kill you, and he ditches the servant who sees the cloud that he's helping be faithful, ditches everyone in Israel that sees what's going on.
Run.
Yeah, pretty much just completely ups and runs, which is weird because it's interesting because he was confident to go up against all of these prophets who, and in front of all these people, where they probably would have and could have killed him if they felt like it, instead of just like just kind of entertaining what he was looking to do. But it's after he's gone big bold and like killing them and then showing off who Yahweh is, that then he's like, shoot, I gotta run away. And so he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, so a testing place. It's the wilderness testing place instead of the mountain testing place. So where you're kind of like, God can show up there, and he frequently does, but it's not the same as going to be up to the gods where you're tested by them up there.
Right. Yes.
and came and sat under a broom tree, and he asked that he might die, saying, is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers. And he lay down and slept under a broom tree. And behold, an angel touched him and said to him, Arise and eat. He looked, and behold, there was at his head a cake baked on hot stone with a jar of water. And he ate and drank and lay down again. Then the angel of the Lord came again a second time and touched him and said, Arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you. And he rose and ate and drank and went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mount of God, of which we know Horeb from a previous podcast we did is the equivalent of Sinai. Like, it is
Right, yeah.
Sinai. So he's going, so before he goes there, like, he runs off to the wilderness. And his testing moment, if we were to see a testing moment here, his testing moment is, are we going to trust God still? He's like, no, just kill me. Like, just take me out. Which, I mean, that's not really passing a test there.
No, and it's interesting that we have the two opposite locations for testing, right? Because you kind of mentioned there's the mountain testing and then there's the wilderness testing, right? And the wilderness, in my mind, has always been like this flat, barren, desert, deserted.
Oh yeah, because you definitely have that in several cases,
right? And whereas the mountain is more seen as like this lush.
It's seen as paradise,
right? Exactly. So it's interesting there that it's the two different environments in my mind, kind of signifying the type of testing that occurs.
Well, if I were to take your parallel that you kind of drawed last time and what you're kind of saying now with the lush stuff, the mountain being lush and like this paradise spot, and then he's exiled by them, but also kind of self-exiles himself into the wilderness, which is, well, Adam and Eve are exiled from the Eden, and then Cain is exiled from, they're exiled from the garden, and then he's exiled from Eden.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's exiling himself from the mountain that was just shown to be this Eden moment,
right?
Where it is lush. It is like filled with all this beautiful rain and flourishing of food and greenery, and it's called Carmel, which means like vineyard and garden, stuff like that. He now left that and left it behind and ran into the wilderness to now fail a test. So he's like ran away from the presence to get away from the not like in a Jonah way, but almost a little bit in a Jonah way at the same time. But instead of like Jonah was like, I don't want them to repent, so kill me now. Like, I'd rather just die than do this. He's like, yeah, I screwed up and I can't do this. And it's like, it's weird. It's just crazy. Like, but I guess, I see this in my own life too, where you kind of go from one moment where you're like on like this like, I remember in like high school, they would call it that's a spiritual high, and you're going for it. But then there's like that one day where all of a sudden it's like, bam. Like, it's almost if it just died off and went away. And for him, it's because he feared for his own life. But before that was also still on the table, was the loss of his own life. But now we have a change in that moment. And he runs off to hide and say, I don't want this. Kill me. Take me out.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to see there the dichotomy of his responses. More so though, I was kind of getting at the point of like, there are different kinds of testings.
Sure, yeah.
Right. So there's one on the mountain, right, where you get more of a direct test from God. Right? Whereas the wilderness is more of a test of the person, I want to say. So, and I wouldn't say it's universal, but I would say it's more typological, I think.
Okay.
In that, when we see people like Moses go up onto the mountain, right, he in a sense tests God, right? He says, show me your glory.
Sure.
Right? And God says, no. But when we see in the wilderness, like, let's take Moses in the wilderness, and he is given the test of the rock, right? And he fails that test.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a testing of God on the mountain, and there's a testing of the person in the wilderness. Now, again, it's not universal, right? Abraham ascended the mountain and was tested there.
Yeah.
But it is also in a way a test for God, right? Is God really going to have Abraham sacrifice Isaac. Is God going to provide? Is it going to be known?
Yeah.
And so I find that interesting, that there's not a universal, but there is a typological pattern in which we see corresponding to the different locations and what they represent, right? The mountain being where you go to meet God, and that is a testing of God. And then the wilderness is this place that is supposed to be, really a test for humanity in general. And you see individual people tested there.
Yeah. It's often kind of like a preparation spot.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go into like the
Right.
city or the mountain.
Yeah.
To ascend it there. And yeah, it's just to kind of tie the two things we're both kind of saying together. Elijah exiles himself into that testing spot
Yes.
and fails the test, which is just, it kind of just shows the condition of mankind, one, based on the response to the other people around him, and also even God's own people. You have like moments where you are passing the test and things are going great, but then the next moment it kind of plummets. So he self-exiles himself and fails the test. But what's interesting though is like God's still meeting him here to prepare him, as we just kind of saw at the end, this angel bring him this food and drink to nourish up. He does this 2 times and says, okay, you need this so you can go travel through 40 days and 40 nights. So what Israel was supposed to be doing when they were sojourning, and then what Jesus does in his wilderness testing, to go on to Mount Sinai or Mount Horeb again.
Yeah.
Where Israel once before. Which is interesting that, the people that are tied to the 40 and Sinai are the 2 people that meet Jesus at the Transfiguration. It's just really interesting that those, it's not by accident, obviously, that those who are there, and people will be like, well, why are they there? But both of them go through this 40 days and 40 nights type of thing.
Yeah.
Or some kind of 40 situation. Both of them go on to Horeb and Sinai. Both of them have testing in wilderness and testing on mountains.
Mm-hmm.
But considering the condition, this kind of reveals the condition of humanity, where you have one moment where he's passing the test, and the next moment he's failing the test in the wilderness, where it shows the condition of man, one, of how they're responding, the people around him, they would rather kind of just go into war against this person who brought and showed who's really God. Yes, there's the fact he killed the prophets, but that's part of what they were telling him. And that there's days where, even as God's people, whether they would be the Israelites in the Bible or Christians even today, I can attest this to my own life, where you have moments where you're like, you're going great, your passing testings are going great, you feel like you're really getting close to the Lord, you're seeing the good work of the Lord. And then, I'm not going to say testing necessarily equates sin, but you have moments where you have either you've failed and have sinned, or have just failed the test in some capacity. And that could happen just like that, out of nowhere, or it feels like out of nowhere. Now, sometimes you can pause and think about it, you can find like how it all kind of tracks down. But it's just, he should be still on the spiritual high, if to use like that modern vernacular.
Yeah. Well, you'd certainly think so, but look at our own lives, right? How quickly does that spiritual high
just dies off?
Yeah.
Like
off a cliff.
Yeah. It's not even like it just dwindles. It's like dead sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Just plummets. And it's just, I don't know. It's just interesting. Like right after this, those first few verses, all that happens. But God doesn't reject him or turn away from him. He says, okay, this is not your finest moment. This is not your
understatement.
This is not your work, the best work you've ever done right now.
That was 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. But nourish up. You have a journey. You need to go to where Israel all started. You're going to go there to the same journey that they went through. You're going to be tested. You're going to continue this test in the wilderness. You're going to ascend that mountain. And if we're going to ascend that mountain, if God's sending him up to Horeb, the Sinai, that means it's him saying, I'm going to meet you there. But we're going to have a conversation about some things. So, verse 9, there he came to a cave and lodged in it, and behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? Pause for a second.
Yes.
Really, really cool. First off, there's a cave on this mountain. There's a cave up here. I think that's interesting. It might be the cave that Moses was into.
I had that thought too.
Yeah. And then you have the word of the Lord. It's the one who's speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Word of the Lord is the one who says, hey, yo.
in that exact terminology.
Yeah, that exact terminology. Hey, yo, what are you doing?
Yo.
What are you doing here?
That, or it's like Italian American. Hey, yo, what are you doing?
Oh, my goodness. No.
No? All right.
But then in verse 10, this is Elijah's response. I have been very jealous for the Lord God. I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts. The people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left. And they seek my life to take it away.
Boo-hoo.
It's, on one hand, you're like, okay, sure. Before we said that he's the only one because the only one who started standing before them.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, he's also still not the only one in a sense. Like, there's a lot of this, like, self-looking onto himself and forgetting those around him. Exactly.
He literally consults the prophet Obadiah.
Yeah.
Right before the events on Carmel.
Exactly. We're still having Elijah not passing tests. Mm-hmm. He's not passed the test in the wilderness. He's not passed the test on Sinai. But I think the interesting thing is that God's still not done with him regardless of his failing the test. He's not like, you failed, therefore you're out.
Yeah.
So you failed. Okay. We better get you passing soon.
Exactly. Well, and because God's plan is larger than just Elijah's failure.
Right.
And so the benefit of having an omniscient God is, I should rephrase that. The benefit of God being omniscient is that he knows when we're going to fail.
Yeah.
And therefore does not make his plan contingent upon our success.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So when Moses, I brought up Moses striking the rock, God knew that was going to happen. Right. So that's why when Moses fails that test, God does say, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You will continue to lead these people, but you will not enter the promised land because you failed that test.
Yeah.
Right? Because God had already known that and therefore had ordained, all right, Joshua will be the one. Right. So I wanted to add a little context there because I could picture somebody going, well, hang on, he cut Moses off after he failed. It's like, yes and no, because again, Moses still led the people
right
for quite a bit of time after that.
Yeah.
But it's more so about understanding as much as we can God's will and how that plays a role in things and God's omniscience.
Yeah. And his desire and his plan was to have Elijah prep Elisha, who comes at the very end of the chapter, that he's supposed to be the one that kind of succeeds where Elijah kind of falters.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we get him saying that, okay, I'm jealous. They want to kill me. There's Israelites, they turn away from you. There's no more prophets.
Allegedly,
there's no one there. Even I talked to one who hid the others. And he said this. Then he says, "Go out and stand on the mount before Yahweh," which is wild because the word is speaking. The word of Yahweh saying, "Go talk to Yahweh." Behold, the Lord passed by. Yep. Passing by. So you have the word who's there, and then he says, go talk to Yahweh, and then Yahweh's passing by him. It's like, what?
It kind of makes me wonder if that's the spirit that passes by.
So I was actually kind of thinking to some degree with that too. So we have,
especially discussing a great and mighty wind.
So you and I've talked about this before. together, but never on here, which is, I keep saying for like about a couple months now, I want to do a big Holy Spirit project at some point. Because I think there's some passages that tend to be used anachronistically and some that are really awesome passages for it.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because for the really awesome one is that the word for wind is the same for breath and it's the same for spirit in Hebrew.
Yeah.
And there was a thought that sometimes the wind passing by was the very presence of God or of the gods in some, depending on your region.
Right.
So could be the spirit, could be that is talking out the word saying, hey, go do this. And then the word is passing by him as he's going to go up. Don't really know. We just know that there's a word speaking and then Yahweh's passing by him.
Well, and I think, and we'll get to it in a little bit, but perhaps I don't understand it fully. I don't think it's the word passing by necessarily, because he doesn't actually leave the cave. Right? Like, the word tells him, go out and stand on the mountain. And then only after all of this happens does he actually go outside.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, perhaps the word, walks out of the cave at that point. The text just doesn't tell us. But I'd be more inclined to think it's not the word.
The reason why I say is because the strong wind, we mentioned it. So, and behold, Yahweh passed by, and a great strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before Yahweh. But Yahweh was not in the wind. So we have a wind that's breaking.
Yeah.
But it's not Yahweh. But there's a wind breaking them. And then we have, and after the wind, an earthquake. But Yahweh was not in the earthquake.
Right. Well, and so I guess I'm not saying that the wind itself is the spirit. Yeah. I'm saying that the spirit is the one passing by.
Okay. Possibly.
Yeah.
All we know is that Yahweh is passing by. Right. There's a physical Yahweh.
Right. And then the wind, I would say, is more of a little nod of which person it is. I don't think the spirit is the wind in this case, because it literally says Yahweh was not in the wind.
Yeah.
Right. And if I were to say that and ignore that sentence completely, I'd then have to say, well, then, yeah, the spirit is also an earthquake and fire, which the fire, there's a stronger argument for, but not so much the earthquake.
Yeah. Yeah. We get these three elements. We have the wind, we get the earthquake, we get the fire, all of which Yahweh is not in those. He's not in those things that are taking place. These great, terrifying, this wind that is breaking rocks into pieces.
Yeah.
This earthquake that is, who really wants to be in the middle of an earthquake? And then you have, after earthquake, a fire, but the Yahweh was not in the fire, and the fire, and after the fire, the sound of a low whisper. But that fire, we don't even know what that fire is doing. So like, winds breaking the stuff. Now there's an earthquake. There's fire now. Or like, why is there fire? Where is the fire? What is the fire doing? Is it like before it was like raining down again? Is it just there? Is it like all of a sudden just bursts like in Moses when he's at the bush? There's just fire. But then sound of a low whisper. And when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. Behold, there came a voice to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He said, "I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets, and the sword, with the sword. And I, even I, only am left, and they seek my life to take it away." One, really cool imagery with that stuff. Two, Yahweh speaks in a whisper. Three, Elijah responds the exact same way.
No lessons learned. No. That's what I took away from it.
Yeah.
No lessons learned.
No.
That's so human.
Yeah.
It is so unbelievably freaking human.
Yeah. Like all this like element display of his power or whatever. Like have everyone understand like those things are happening, or the fact that they're happening but they're not harming Elijah. We don't know. It doesn't seem to be phasing him that much either.
Yeah.
Then again, he just saw fire rain down from the sky, so like,
been there, done that.
He's like, I've seen this before. And then the whisper, but Elijah's response is the exact same.
Yeah.
And it's like, Why, even after God's great displays,
Yeah.
sometimes our
And
response
you,
is
and
stay
you
the
could do
same?
1,001 dissertations on this passage.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right. So I won't rabbit trail us, but I do love that he demonstrates somewhat the lesson of Gideon, right? That God can do incredible, powerful things, but he prefers to work on a smaller scale. Generally, right? I mean, the flood was not on a small scale, but
That more personal scale,
yeah,
like you have with
because he's a
Abraham.
personal God.
Yeah, like Paul points to Abraham's covenant, where it is just the two of them being the more, um, I want to say valid, but the greater covenant
Mm-hmm.
imagery than that of Sinai, where you have the myriads and the angels all coming down with like these mediators and in the heavens and all of Israel and then the mountain, all of this grand imagery. I'm saying, nah, the better one is that one right there, that one with Abraham.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? That we have such a relationship with such a perfect and loving and holy God, and he still stoops down to our level to have that personal relationship with us
Even though we fail the test,
constantly.
and even when he demonstrates, like, look, we're like,
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing too is the response by Yahweh after this still. Because we get, Yahweh said to him, go return your way to the wilderness. Let's go back into the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael to be king over Syria, and Jehu the son of Nimshi you shall anoint to be king over Israel, and Elisha the son of Shaphat of Avel Meholah you shall anoint to be prophet in your place. I say that's interesting because Elijah's not quite being done used yet. He's going to go do these things, and he's going to go prepare Elisha, who's going to replace him. So there's a sense of like, okay, you failed the test. I'm not done with you that though. You're going to prepare the one person who's actually going to replace you, which is very much a Moses and Joshua moment. Even if it's not like directly the same language, Moses in some way did prep Joshua.
Yeah.
Moses
Oh,
did
definitely.
Moses still went and did other work for God, as you articulated earlier. But they're still succeeded by someone else who's going to go do the rest of the mission.
Right.
So he's not done with Elijah, but he is also saying, okay, there is a threshold in some degree. Like I still have plans for you, but we are going to keep going this other direction. We're going to keep going this direction. But he also knew that he was going to use Elisha.
Right.
See,
One almost wonders, I think, if it's kind of similar to Moses and Joshua in that because of Elijah, I realize I now have to say that a little stronger so we know.
Elijah and Elisha.
Yeah. Because of Elijah's failures, is that the reason for Elisha carrying on, right? Because the reason that Moses didn't enter the promised land is he failed the test.
Yeah. After
I'm now left to wonder, is that why Elijah doesn't finish the mission and Elisha goes forward to do it?
It's an interesting thought that Elisha takes up where Elijah kind of leaves off.
Mm-hmm.
There's that sense where God isn't done with him. He also knew what he was going to do, like this whole omniscient thing you're talking about. But also it's not like, I want to phrase this. He's not done with Elijah, but he also is done with Elijah in this weird mixture where he's like, there's going to be a cutoff and we're going to get to that point and Elijah's going to do the rest of the mission. He's going to do what else that you could have done. You could have done this, but I'm going to have him do this instead. Like Moses, you could have gone to the promised land.
Yeah. But now it'll be
But
Joshua.
now it's going to be Joshua who leads them into the promised land. And, it's interesting because it would make sense because of Elijah's response twice is the exact same response. on Mount Sinai. So now this isn't a test for God. This is a test for Elijah. He's being tested in the wilderness. He's being tested on the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And his response is shrug.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this anymore. God's like, okay, then you won't do it anymore.
Yep.
But you're going to do the other things for me first. You're going to do these, anoint these 2 kings, and you're going to go anoint and prep Elisha so that he may be your replacement. He says, and Elisha, the son of Shaphat of El-Meholah, you shall anoint to be prophet in your place.
Mm-hmm.
And the one who escapes from the sword of Hazael shall Jehu put to death, and the one who escapes from the sword of Jehu shall Elisha put to death. Yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him. So there's like this glimmer of hope, and they're saying, you're going to prep him. Elisha's going to continue this off. He's going to take care of my business.
That's one way of putting it.
And the remnant, they will be saved. The remnant who are faithful to me still, who have not failed the test.
Yeah.
Even though they saw your display of, you ran away, completely just abandoned them. You showed them what you were my vessel that I was working through to show how awesome, like how much greater I am than these other gods and why they should trust me.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a remnant that are faithful to me, despite your failings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really interesting. And it's kind of weird to go from this like really cool episode where it's like this uplifting, awesome kind of cool stuff to this. What just happened? What switched in Elijah's head to then make him go from like mocking gods to willing to take out the prophets? All is like, yeah, guys, we're here. Look, God's gonna provide. Great. To crap, I'm gonna run, and I don't want to do this anymore. I'm out. It's just the wild human condition. This is a direction that I wasn't planning on, but actually can kind of see a connection now. Because if we think about what Psalm 15 says, which is, I'm mad that I skipped it. We did our Psalm episode. When I was reading it with my girlfriend, I was like,
Aww.
I was like, whoa, this is awesome. And just kind of think about these things, but what it says here. So I'll just read the whole thing first. O Lord, who shall sojourn in your tent? Who shall dwell on your holy hill? He who walks blamelessly and does what is right, and speaks truth in his heart. He who does not slander with his tongue, and does no evil to his neighbor, nor takes up a reproach against his friend. In whose eyes a vile person is despised, but who honors those who fear the Lord. Who swears to his own hurt and does not change. Who does not put out his money at interest, and does not take a bribe against the innocent. He who does these things shall never be moved. And where they never be moved from? The dwelling of the holy hill.
Right.
And just kind of thinking about those who, just kind of, the Psalms is in the middle of the wisdom literature section. I guess songs, literally, but is also part of that discussion, like pause and kind of consider the walk of, in this case, Israel and the individual and the prophets and all these things. Those who walk blamelessly, do what is right, speak truth, don't slander, don't do evil, are not vile towards others, don't like start to curse out other people in their heart, try to like make deals or other things that brings the downfall of others, does not pretty much like seeks the betterment of other people. They're the ones who are going to dwell on that holy hill. Those who are effectively faithful to Yahweh's character. Those who constantly turn to him.
Sort of the Beatitudes.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the very thing that Elijah, think about it, he could have remained on that mountain. Yeah, like in a theological and in a literal sense.
Yeah.
He could have literally stayed up there and then like tried to stay in hiding. But also he could have like, in a sense, be there with them, where it would have been part of that restoring. He'd be in there with them. But, failing to test means that he's he is being moved from that mountain. And I think it was interesting that he who does these things shall never be moved. Is the idea like that someone else is moving them.
Right.
Elijah kind of self-moved himself, and then God gives him chances to test him, and then it's like, okay, we're moving you off the spot, because a lot of the people on the mountain are also the prophets, because they're sharing the message of God.
Right.
And now he's being told, okay, I'm going to replace you, you're going to do this. But then we think about what Elisha's then going to be doing. Elisha's going to be the one who then can, as a prophet, ascend that mountain. And he can be the one to dwell there and to communicate these truths to the people, saying, look, all of us can go back to Sinai, or all of us can go, in this case, go back to Zion.
Yeah.
Be in there again. If we just remain faithful in the covenant, be the people that God has called us to be, we can dwell on that mountain. And as long as we're remaining faithfully to God, you won't be moved. So there's no need to be afraid about all these things, because you are on his holy hill. You are in his tent. It's kind of like Jesus when he says, don't fear those who can kill you. They just destroy the flesh. Because, I mean, there's a God who can destroy the entirety of who you are.
Body and soul in hellfire.
Yeah.
Yes.
But those who, even when they die, they are, at least in the Christian mind, are in paradise, which is like in his presence, and they will be with him again. Right. And there's a whole lot more stuff you could talk about with Psalm 15, but the idea that now you have a new person, if you were to put a glimmer of hope, you have a new person who's being called to set up and to be on that mountain, and he's going to be trying to do these things, be faithful. But then we also have one person who came down in flesh and in his incarnate state ascends that mountain and has remained faithfully steady on that mountain. Physically, like he's gone up there, but then also even when he physically descends, he is relationally still on that mountain and is providing the path and the way for us to be able to ascend there with him and not just be those lost in the wilderness. But I'm not going to go on the trail of wilderness talk. That's a whole nother fun conversation. But yeah, I don't know. Psalm 15 just kind of was like a really interesting one, and it kind of plays into this a little bit.
Well, so I think, honestly, the lesson here is not to take the opportunities and the tests that God gives you for granted.
I thought you were going somewhere like...
I was going somewhere.
And you went to a place I was very disappointed in going to. This is not the hill I want to be on.
If you... See, it's spreading. And if you don't want to take us for granted, you can like and subscribe to the Called to Defend podcast.
I think you used the granite one before.
The YouTube channel. And go ahead and leave your best rock pun in the comment below, as well as any thoughts you had on the testing of Elijah. In all seriousness, I do think it is probably one of the clearest pictures of the human condition. And certainly one of the clearest pictures of the human perseverance in really dedicating ourselves to our selfish ways. And we would love to hear your thoughts on that. So, my brain just shut down. I'm too tired on the bicycle.
So with all that said, we'll see you guys, Lord willing, next time.
Bicycle. You just get that?